because I believe in the original ZANU-PF and what it stood for. I'm a former provincial youth chairperson from National and Central Province. Some time ago, with my colleagues, we were part of the same ZANU-PF campaign, which was our initiative to try and save the party from the problems that we saw affecting the party. So I'm here today because I am a son to a war collaborator. My mother was a war collaborator, though she died, and she was part of the freedom fighters, those people who sacrificed all that they had for the sake of Zimbabwe, for the sake of freedom, for the sake of independence. So I took it upon myself as a citizen to play my part, to contribute to the struggle of our generation. I'm not doing this for an individual. I'm not doing this for myself, but I feel that if the yesteryear youths could commit themselves to the struggle, why would we as the current youths not do the same? So it is against that background that as a Zimbabwean citizen and constitutionally allowed to do so, I'm here to express myself. So I am happy to engage you, my fellow countrymen, as I share with you my personal opinion and view on the political developments in Zimbabwe. I'm doing this at a time we have been witnessing a number of fearless Zimbabweans from across the political divide coming together to chart the way forward and showing solidarity to each other against one common problem, which problem is none other than Mr. Mugabe. This is happening after a long period of us having been regarding each other as foes who would see no good in each other. But now we have realized that our strength lies in our coming together, though in our different forms, but bound together by a common cause, which cause is to bring an end to the suffering of the general populace, fighting corruption, resisting abuse of state power and state resources, in settling party-based differences, and also in trying to bring around a peaceful, democratic, tolerant, developed and prosperous Zimbabwe for all. It's high time we set aside our differences and work together and get rid of this outdated, self-centered and power-hungry ruler. I congratulate those who discovered the problem before some of us would. You were right, though at that time we thought you were wrong. After all, the majority of us, including yourselves, have been at some point been part of the praise and worship choir in ZANU-PF. Against that same background, I also don't blame those defending the men today, for at some point we were also like them. Frankly, I now dislike my president, Mr. Mugabe, the same way he dislikes me and you. I still believe in ZANU-PF as an institution of the masses and what it is supposed to stand for, but never again under the incumbent leader of the party. Current and past ZANU-PF members are equally responsible for nurturing this problem leader, who is so obsessed with power that he can even afford to ignore calls to deal with his corrupt subordinates, who would have milked the national coffers dry, but can quickly afford to convene a party rally to deal with those constitutionally expressing themselves and makes sure that he sees their back while corrupt ministers walk scot-free. It's true, we stood with this man for so long. Personally, I was one of Mr. Mugabe's dogs of war, and we defended his rule as we thought that we were doing the right thing for the party and the nation. Little did we know that we were grooming and nurturing another Ian Smith who would turn out to hound us. Personally, I was part of the Team Mazoe crash, which was publicly led by Miss Grace Mugabe, but with its real leader being Mr. Mugabe pulling strings from the background. It was indeed a moment of madness, as we recklessly accused fellow comrades of being gamma talks and wanting to kill Mr. Mugabe, attempting to stage a party coup against Mr. Mugabe, visiting Sangomas, allegedly hiring snipers, funding factionalism, and being corruptionists. And by looking at the seriousness of the said allegations, some of which were treasonous, we expected that it would at least lead to the arrest of the suspects. And by mid-2015, I was left asking if those allegations peddled by Mr. and Ms. Mugabe were genuine, and how suddenly the same accused persons had become allies and best of their friends in the party, to an extent of making overtures to readmit and reinstate them in the party and cabinet. Yes, I personally admit that I was a blind loyalist of Mr. Mugabe, that I could not see that I was being used by Mr. Mugabe, as I thought that I was defending him in the genuine cause and interest of the party and the nation, which is the same way he is using others currently who think that they are defending him. My attack on former VP Joyce Mujuru and the then senior leadership of the party, which included Simon Kayamoyo, Webster Shamu, Didmas Mtasa, Sidin Sekaramai, David Parele Nyatwa, Nicholas Goche, the late Amos Midzi, Tendai Savan, Ray Kaukond, and Padija. Ms. Mujuru, and would meet at the then Conway offices at number 53 Selu Avenue here in Harare. Yes, I took part as many others did, and innocently we were part to that moment of madness. I regret taking part. I remain in ZANU-PF, though I have noted how Mr. Mugabe has privatized ZANU-PF as a party, while disregarding the founding principles of the party, and continue to abuse the respect and party membership that the party membership has for him as a leader. It has now become a crime in the party to criticize wrongs, and you be accused of undermining the first family, despite the fact that there is no such constitutional provision which talks of the first or the last families, as the party is about individuals as members coming together under the banner of the party as an organization. I would, however, want to partly apportion the blame on our fathers and mothers, the freedom fighters who allowed the party leader to have his image become one of the party symbols and have his name sung and chanted in party slogans and songs, thus idealizing him and belittling others and the critical roles they played in the liberation struggle and the development of Zimbabwe in the post-independence era. E.g., the proposals to have KG6 named after General Tongo have not had any serious takers, including Mr. Mugabe himself, who as a civilian party leader benefited from the military escapades of the late general. Yes, I am ZANU-PF, despite having noted that Mr. Mugabe has a continued habit of playing divisive, manipulative and arm-twisting politics and being the real force behind the creation of factions in the party as a grand strategy to assist him in his hold to party leadership and power without genuinely and sincerely addressing critical issues affecting the party membership. I have learned that Mr. Mugabe is the real force behind all the problems bedeviling the nation and the party, though he pretends otherwise. He doesn't practice what he preaches on unity and tactfully deceives his prey while he sends juniors to harass his subordinates while he plays smart, unaware, and uninvolved. I know for a fact that he is also behind the current turbulence and disorder in the party. Recently, there has been utterances by Mr. Mugabe, which utterances marks of him portraying himself as the party and nation's alpha and omega, with no one having the capacity to lead Zimbabwe ZANU-PF better than him. No, he is not the alpha and omega, or a resemblance of Jesus Christ, as some police recruits at a recent passport parade officiated by him would want us to believe. It is my honest view and that of the generality of the people who experienced Ian Smith's brutality that Mr. Mugabe has become our own version of Ian Smith. And I stand by that, for that my constitutional opinion and view as I freely express myself. Ian Smith stood for the majority as he then represented the interests of a small clique which included political vouchers and opportunists surviving on blood, sweat, and tears of the poor and toiling masses. Ian Smith was brutal and would deal ruthlessly with any opponents, captured freedom fighters, and the unarmed general citizen. Ian Smith used the police and their dogs against the masses, though he had no water cannons then to use on unarmed, harmless civilians. Ian Smith was divorced from reality, and so is Mr. Mugabe, who is out of touch with the reality, as he now listens to none other than his dear wife. And the security men are scared to tell him the truth for fear of reprisals, and now just tell him that which he wants to hear. Ian Smith would ruthlessly deal with the protesters using state machinery, as he commanded the whole security system to descend heavily on the aggrieved indigenous peoples. And we all know how he commanded his troops on unarmed refugees in Nyazonya. Ian Smith would, in the face of growing resistance, brag that he was there to stay and that there would never be majority rule, not in 1,000 years, ignoring the reality of a fed-up mass, and boasted of his infamous world power and threatened to ruthlessly crush any dissenting voices. Ian Smith would use the Selous scouts to divide the masses and train them to masquerade as freedom fighters while seeking to divide the nation and alienate the genuine freedom fighters from the masses. And this was a classic example of a divide and rule strategy and the bid to alienate the freedom fighter from their supporters, the masses. Ian Smith would arrest the late VP Simon Mzinda for just reciting a Solomon Muchairo written poem, as he heavily descended on those who were seeking to express themselves. Ian Smith would seek to promote and fuel tribal insurrections on the Zimbabwean masses in his failed bid to boost his hold to power. Ian Smith would reward his ground runners by giving them that which belonged to the masses, the land, and parceled out the fertile land to his foot soldiers, though today errand boys and girls are being given unserviced land as residential stands. Ian Smith would ignore the voice of reason and concentrate on consolidating and safeguarding his power and position, which voices were called for him to address the critical political and economic questions as raised by the critical mass. Yes, Ian Smith would brutalize the church for standing with the agenda of the masses and the freedom fighters, and thought as a politician he had every right to comment on activities of the church, and he would heavily descend on the church. Yes, Ian Smith would arrest freedom fighters and bring trumped charges against them, and these included treason and banditry, and would tie his victims on a helicopter to instill fear in the masses and send a clear signal that whoever dared to challenge him would meet the same fate. Ian Smith would brutalize this and torture the civilian war collaborators and the masses for aiding in the liberation cause, after which the masses then had to secretly devise a way to render support to the freedom fighters, and eventually voted Smith and his division front out of office in 1980. Now, therefore, if the authorities or anyone thinks that likening Mr. Mugabe to Ian Smith is unfair, then I challenge them to incorporate the Nyanda Nyakasikana poem as part of the national pledge or someone modifies it so that it becomes a song and it becomes our national anthem, replacing the Simutsa Imureza anthem, which anthem has to be sung every morning as we host our flag, or they play it on air as a jingle, the same way Rambai Makashinga was built out some years ago. And if they can't do that, then I'm going to say what I've said. For Smith felt the same, as he felt uncomfortable with the same poem and incarcerated the late Dr. Muse. And does the current part and the national leadership still find itself relating to the Liberation National Anthem, which goes as Mwangu Atiza Fera Zimbabwe? Or the opposition to the current government is the one now relating to the then Liberation National Anthem? While Mr. Mugabe would want to portray himself internationally as a saint and a leader par excellence, I beg to differ, and would want to apply his speech at the 62nd UN General Assembly. I will apply it to our situation here at home. As he delivered his speech, which was being broadcast live worldwide, deliberately, the BBC and CNN went on a blackout. And I can assure you that the Herald and ZBC TV will not air my statement. In the same way, the BBC and CNN could not air Mr. Mugabe's statement in his speech at the 62nd UN General Summit. At the 62nd UN General Summit, Mr. Mugabe said, "Mr. President, I lost 11 precious years of my life in the jail of a white Englishman whose freedom and well-being I have assured from the first day of Zimbabwe's independence. I lost a further 15 years fighting one's justice in my country." Here in Zimbabwe, war veterans are saying, we have lost all the precious and the prime years of our life in the bush, fighting for the rule of an ungrateful black man whose power and authority we have assured and protected, but which he has abused from the first day of Zimbabwe's independence, and now sending us to prisons and ill-treating us by using water cannons and tear gas on us. We have lost a further 36 years fighting his personal wars in the party and the country in general. And all the disempowered youth, women, and the unemployed graduates are clearly saying, we have lost all the precious knowledge and experience that we had gained, as you are serving indefinitely in Mr. Mugabe's economic prison as a power-hungry man whose main preoccupation is power and self-serving authority. All this happening 36 years after Zimbabwe's independence. We have lost a future and no longer feel like citizens in our country. Why were the same gathering Mr. Mugabe said, Ian Smith is responsible for the death of well over 50,000 of my people. I bear scars of his tyranny, which Britain and America condoned. I meet his victims every day, yet he walks free today. He farms freely, and there's a farm of well over 500 hectares. He talks freely, associates freely, under a black government. We taught him democracy, we gave him back his humanity. And back here at home we are saying, Mr. Mugabe is responsible for the death of thousands of our fellow citizens who died at his hands directly and indirectly through the infamous Bukuraundi massacre, which he openly claimed the responsibility, famine and hunger, forced disappearances, xenophobic attacks as unemployed youth and women crossed borders in search of livelihood, political violence, cholera, dysentery, typhoid, and inhumane torture. We bear scars of his political and economic brutality and insincerity, which Mpoko and Kasukwele condone. We meet the orphans of his victims every day, yet he walks freely today. He farms freely and owns multiple farms in Zimbabwe. He shouts freely, talks freely, insults freely, associates freely under his dreaded but corrupt government. He says he's democratic. We want to give him back his humanity. At that summit, Mr. Mugabe also said, Africa is not called for a Nuremberg trial against the white world which committed heinous crimes against its own humanity. It has not hunted perpetrators of this genocide, many of whom live to this day, nor has it got reparations from those who offended against it. Instead, it is Africa which is in the dock, facing trial from the same world that persecuted it for centuries. And here today, as Zimbabweans were saying, war vets and all relatives of the victims of his brutality and hard-handedness have not called even for a village court trial against him as the black president who has committed heinous crimes against his own people. They have not handed him as the chief perpetrator of the economic and political genocide, though he lives to this day, nor has he given them reparations for offending them. Instead, it is the poor war veterans and jobless graduates and disempowered citizens who stand in the dock, facing trial from him, the same person they have genuinely supported and voted for over decades. At that UN General Summit, Mr. Mugabe went on to say, let Mr. Bush read history correctly. Let him realize that both personally and in his representative capacity as the current president of the United States, he stands for this civilization which occupied, which colonized, which incarcerated, which killed. He has much to atone for and very little to lecture us on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. His hands drip with innocent blood of many nationalities, and today with the blood of the Iraqi. He still kills. He kills in Iraq, he kills in Afghanistan, and this is supposed to be our master on human rights. He imprisons and tortures at Guantanamo. He imprisoned and tortured at Abu Ghraib. He has secret torture chambers in Europe. Yes, he even imprisons here in the United States, with his jails carrying more blacks than his universities can ever enroll. He even suspends the provisions of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Take Guantanamo, for example. If that constitution came, international law does not apply. The national laws of the people there do not apply. Laws of the United States of America do not apply. Only Bush's law applies. Can the international community accept being lectured by this man on the provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Definitely not. And here today we are saying, can Mr. Mugabe read history correctly? May he realize that both personally and in his representative capacity as the only ruler that Zimbabwe has ever known, he now stands for this disgraced government which disempowers, impoverishes, steals, divides, terrorizes, which brutalizes, which incarcerates, which kills. He has much to atone for and very little to lecture us on human rights, democracy, unity, sustainable development, empowerment, and good governance. His regime's hands drip with innocent blood, sweat, and tears of many citizens. His regime still kills. The regime kills in prisons, hospitals, and roads. They kill in the prisons, on the roads, and hospitals due to the bad state of the prisons and the equally bad state of our roads and the unavailability of basic medicine in our hospitals. And he wants to be regarded as the iconic leader of our times. He imprisons and tortures at his secret torture chambers here in Zimbabwe. Yes, he even imprisons fellow freedom fighters, with his jails today carrying more war veterans than his government has ever empowered. He even suspends the constitutional provisions on human rights. Take the aborted and disrupted meeting of the war veterans in March 2016, for example. At that peaceful gathering, the constitutional provisions on the right to freedom of assembly and association did not apply. The national laws of Zimbabwe do not apply. Even the ZANU-PF party laws do not apply. Only the Bushungo law applies. Can the Zimbabwean community accept to continue to be led by this man to achieve unity, democracy, sustainable development, human rights, and prosperity for all? Definitely not. Mr. Mugabe orated as follows at the UN General Summit. Mr. President, we are alarmed that under his leadership, basic rights of his own people and those of the rest of the world have summarily been rolled back. America is primarily responsible for rewriting core tenets of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We seem all guilty for 9/11. Mr. Bush thinks he stands above all structures of governance, whether national or international. At home, he apparently does not need the Congress. Abroad, he does not need the UN, international law, and opinion. This forum did not sanction Bush and Blair's misadventures in Iraq. The two rode roughshod over the UN and the international opinion. Almighty Bush, perhaps some might regard him as their God. No, he is not my God. I have but one God, who is in heaven. Indeed, he wants us to pray him. We say no to him and encourage him to get out of Iraq. Indeed, he should mend his ways before he clambers up the pulpit to deliver pieties of democracy. And now here we are saying, we are alarmed that under Mr. Mugabe's leadership, basic rights of his own party people and those of the rest of the nation have summarily been brought back. Ms. Mugabe is primarily responsible for rewriting core tenets of the ZANU-PF party and the national constitution. We seem all guilty for his inability to put everything, including his wife and her armed allies, under control. Mr. Mugabe thinks he stands above all structures of governance, whether party or national. At party level, he apparently does not need the Central Committee. At national level, he does not need parliament or legal and rightful opinion. No forum has sanctioned his $15 billion misadventures in Chiazwa. He rode roughshod over the national opinion. Almighty Bob, perhaps some might regard him as their God. No, he is not my God. I have but one God, who is in heaven. Indeed, he wants us to pray him. We say no to him and encourage him to get out of our way. Indeed, he should mend his ways before he clambers up the pulpit to deliver pieties of unity, human rights, empowerment, peace, and sustainable development, when he has caused the crisis and when he divides the party and the nation every day. Let me quote Mr. Mugabe for the last time at that summit when he said, Mr. President, the British and Americans have gone on a relentless campaign of destabilizing and vilifying my country. They have sponsored surrogate forces to challenge lawful authority in my country. They seek regime change, placing themselves in the role of the Zimbabwean people, on whose collective will, democracy, places the right to define and change regimes. Let these sinister governments be told here and now that Zimbabwe will not allow a regime change altered by outsiders. We do not interfere with our own systems, and America and Britain, Mr. Bush and Mr. Brown have no role to play in our national affairs. They are outsiders and mischievous outsiders and should therefore keep out. The colonial sun set a long time ago in 1980 in the case of Zimbabwe, and hence Zimbabwe will never be a colony again. Never. We do not deserve sanctions. We are Zimbabweans and we know how to deal with our problems. We have done so in the past. Well, before Bush and Brown were known politically. We have our own regional and continental organizations and communities. And we are also here saying this. Mr. Mugabe's errand girls, Mahoka and Chimene, have evidently, on his behalf, gone on a relentless campaign of denigrating, insulting and demeaning Emerson Mnangagwa. Mr. Mugabe, the leader of the ZANU-PF G40 party, has sponsored them as surrogate forces to challenge his appointee in public for the second time. He went all systems out to solicit a response from Mnangagwa and intended to use that in seeking to alienate him from his unsolicited admirers and supporters, and want to remove Mnangagwa from being VP, so as to place his wife and her allies in the role of leading the Zimbabwean people, in whose collective will, democracy, places the right to elect an able and committed leader, not a to-be 94-year-old Sekura Simba and his corrupt wife and her equally filled corrupt allies. Let Mr. Mugabe's sinister puppets be told here and now that Zimbabwe and the ZANU-PF will not allow a repeat of the 2014 Joyce Mjuru type of political decimation authored by Mr. Mugabe and his wife. Mr. and Mr. Mugabe have no positive roles to play in our future. They are a dangerous and mischievous couple and should therefore keep out. Mr. Mugabe's divide and rule tactics have expired a long time ago. In 2014, the case of ZANU-PF and Zimbabwe. And ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe will never be a Gushungo tax shop again. Never. We do not deserve his outdated propaganda restrictions on who to treat as allies or as enemies. We are Zimbabweans and we know how to deal with our problems. as they also did in the past when they engaged China, Russia, Libya, Romania, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania, Yugoslavia, and many others, as they fought for independence and freedom before 1980. We have our own regional, continental, and international partners and allies in the current struggle of our generation, and he has no right to dictate that to us. End of quote, and my own version and application of the president's speech. Now, I want to take this opportunity to speak and appeal to this daughter, Bona. Bona, some of us look at you as the most reasonable and the reserved member of your father's family. And I'm sorry to drag you into these political issues, but I have no option. But traditionally and customarily, after being named after your father's mother, we regard you as his mother, Buya Bona. Please, may you on our behalf engage Daddy and make him see reason in resigning while there are still some few who can respect him and hold him high dearly. For there shall be none soon. If he can't realize this wicked truth, that he has passed his best before death, and he has played it wrong this time, and that things are falling apart around him, then we have no one to blame but himself, as he faces an embarrassment in the coming cause. There has never been a time when forces have converged at the same point like now. We are uniting to say enough is enough. Bona, Daddy is fast turning into a zero from a hero, and he may find it very difficult to secure a place at our national shrine, for he seems committed to destroying his legacy of more than half a century. You were in China, dear Bona, and I hope you may find time to learn about what happened to Chairman Mao's legacy, which almost went to nothing because of his second and younger wife, who then worked in collaboration with the Gang of Four, like Dr. Mama is doing with the Generation 40. And I don't think you would want to see Daddy going the same way. I may understand your situation, Bona, for Dr. Mama could be against what we are asking you to do, but also tell her that what I'm proposing here is extremely good for her, so she can secure herself in the coming Zimbabwe. For she has created a lot of political enemies unnecessarily. Tell Dr. Mama not to continue to be abused by her allies, for she may at some point miss home, as she might end up somewhere in Dubai, as her influence authority is short-lived. Advise Dr. Mama to sober up and calm down and make relations, for we may at some point ask her to explain the source of her monies which she is using to construct her properties in Mazowe, when government cannot afford to pay civil servants. And to the man himself, Mr. Mugabe, I'm saying, is this what you have decided to do to your legacy? Do you think you are doing any good to your legacy and standing? Mr. Mugabe, do you still regard this nation as a place for all, or you now think it may be an extension of the Alpha and Omega dairy plant or Gushungo Holdings? Or you still want to ensure that you bring down this nation to absolutely nothing in the same way you failed to run the Alpha and Omega dairy plant, which went broke under your nose? Are you not ashamed, Mr. Mugabe, to preside over a murderous, ruthless, and corrupt regime which has brought this country to a standstill, and that has become characterized with unending bank queues, rampant abuse of journalists, unemployment of even university graduates who you would have kept personally, abuse of state power by your subordinates, lack of basic medicine in hospitals, and anti-poor policies? What do you think your long-gone colleagues, the likes of General Tongo, Chairman Chitepo, Joshua Nkomo, Simon Mzenga, Joseph Msika, JZ Moyo, Leopold Chakawira, and others are saying about the way you are running the country? They so much love they sacrificed for, and ruining the revolution of their blood, sweat, and tears. In 2014, at the last War Vets meeting in that year at the ZANU-PF Party HQ, when people were demanding the demise of Ms. Mujuru, you said, divorce is allowed and it's no crime. but you indicated that any couple about to divorce need to give the about to be divorcee enough time to pack their belongings and leave. My question is, are you the only one who is allowed to politically divorce others and you can't be divorced? Mr. Mugabe, can it be true that all others whom you were with in the trenches during the liberation struggle have all rebelled against the cause of the masses in the nation, and they have all strayed from the correct path of the revolution, and that only you has never strayed and remain ideologically current? How has this been so? When you went to officiate at the Zayoja University in Bidura, you indicated at your rally that if more veterans were to ask you to leave, then you would simply do so. And my question is, why are you then arresting them for asking you to do what you openly asked them to do? Don't you think that if anyone must be charged with the treason, then you must be the first one to be charged for overthrowing a duly elected founding president of ZANU, the late Dabaning Story? If what we have done to Joyce Mujuru and about to do to Emerson Mnangagwa is what you can do to your colleagues and loyalists of long, whom do you think will take you seriously and want to serve you loyal in the party ZANU-PF, when people can see you doing this in broad daylight to those they perceived to be your shadows? Mr. Mugabe, please stop holding us as an innocent citizen at hostage. When has it become a serial crime to support you to lead us that you can play around with our future heritage? Mr. Mugabe, why have you thought of monopolizing this nation and turning it into a one-man state with you belittling the roles of other grandsons and daughters of this nation? And do you think this current party will shut business in the event of exit from the helm of the party nation? And that was the only one capable of leading. In 2014, when you said passing ZANU-PF, after being commanded by your wife, I thought then that it was a mistake. But now I've realized that you really meant it, and you want to leave the party dead and buried. Why, at your age, Mr. Mugabe, do you continue to play hide and seek games? Can't you be sincere with your comrades? I also appeal to you to be considerate and give our future a chance. For in the 2018 elections, I will not entrust my future on you as a 94-year-old. My message to you is, you are incapacitated, and I urge you to resign now and have time to rest and play with Mzukuru Simba Jr. For no one would want to bother you at that age, or you will remain defiant and will embarrass you in 2018. Thank you, Mr. President. And to those overzealous ZANU-PF charlatans, I say, do not threaten a peace-loving citizen. As youth-led barons, just learn to enjoy proceeds of your ill-gotten strength quietly, and not threaten to deal with anyone, and suggesting that police must fold their hands and allow you to go around beating protesters. So you want to be allowed to take the law into your hands? Please try it and see how it unfolds. No one is holding to a crate of eggs. So please just start it and see. We are peace-loving people and don't believe in violence, and don't want to be dragged in a counterproductive fight with you. And that must not be translated to mean that we are cowards. No. But don't just push us into the corner, for we might then be forced to defend ourselves from a thuggery. We will continue to express ourselves freely and constitutionally, and together as Zimbabweans will get there. And learning from ZANU-PF, which has taken upon itself as a party, not as government, to dish out land in a partisan and factional way as a means of soliciting for votes in support ahead of the 2018 elections. May I humbly and kindly ask all the political parties to embark on a similar program of identifying and parceling out land to their supporters. All leaders of political parties must now launch stand schemes and conduct the launch of their political parties and their headquarters. To all the progressive forces, I say, let's all continue to commit ourselves in these different forms and be ready to plant trees under whose shade we may not sit. For we are not doing it for ourselves, but for the future generation. In undertaking the commitment to save our nation from total collapse, we must be well aware of the positive, negative repercussions this may bring to us as individuals, which may include but not limited to arrest on frivolous and trumped-up charges, threats to our physical being, in an attempt on our lives and those of our families, and even death as our effort obviously threatens the agenda of a super clique linked to Mr. Mugabe. I want to take this opportunity to ask our human rights and constitutional lawyers to come to our immediate rescue and help by drafting a constitutional challenge to Mr. Mugabe's physical state and capacity to be the state president. It is my view that Mr. Mugabe has long been incapacitated and no longer fit to lead Zimbabwe. He is the historic fall at the airport. He is staggering in India. He is embarrassing sleep on podium in Japan. His loss of memory when he read the same speech twice in Parliament. His personal admission at the 2014 ZANU-PF Congress that he now gets bullied by his wife, and another public admission by him in Gutu that he can no longer command his wife to prepare good food for him, are all clear testimony of his incapacity to lead. Physically looking at him, he is now not able to board or disembark from a plane without being aided. And I challenge the authorities to allow members of the general public to bid him farewell at the airport, or that he inspects of guard of honor on foot, or even take a 200-meter walk without assistance. Dear fellow countrymen, we have to make the commitment to face anything and everything that may come because of our desire to reclaim our future, as no amount of threat, harassment, arrest, or even physical harm will deter us from saving ourselves and the future generation from the current problems. If need be, it is a cause for which we must be ready to die. And that idea will not die with us if we are true. And no one can arrest that desire for our nation. Let's unite and reclaim our future and nation, for it is our cause and future which is at stake. We can't fold our hands, stand aside and watch as our future is being destroyed. Let's speak against this peacefully and in the confines of the laws of the land. Zimbabwe is our home. Zimbabwe is our homeland together. It must be clear to anyone and everyone that we are not second-class members in this nation, and we will never allow such. We remain committed to saving our nation, and we will continue to speak against those seeking to destroy it. Let's all discard fear and speak against those abusing our future. Arrest, threats, and victimization must not take a toll on us. Let's refuse to be bullied by the dictators' emissaries seeking to crush our just struggle for reclamation of our nation and future. If we don't speak out against the current happenings in the country, then history will judge us as traitors. The era of bootlicking, praise, and worshipping is past us. We demand our future. It's a fact that nature has caught up with Mr. Mugabe as old age has taken toll on him, and there is absolutely nothing that he can do to reverse that. He must thank God for keeping him to his age, and thank Zimbabwe for keeping him in power for all this long. But he must get this right. Nambetambe inoreba ichakanaka. Now he can't keep up with the pressure of the top job, and even those purporting to be supporting him to rule from the wheelchair or the grave are even aware of that fact. And that is why they are secretly engaging members from other parties in a bid to secure positions in a transitional authority after Mr. Mugabe. They have a feeling of political, economic, and social insecurity after Mr. Mugabe. Everyone is planning for life after the incumbent, including his own wife and all members of his G40 cabal and their emissaries have been meeting agents of other parties in the neighboring countries, so they must stop this holier-than-thou attitude against the war veterans. Yes, they shall continue to arrest us the same way they were arrested by A. Smith, but they will not arrest our minds and the desire for a better and prosperous Zimbabwe in the same way Smith's jails failed to break them. To our gallant fathers and mothers, the fearless war veterans, we say, never back down. We are in this together, and together we will get there. Our luta continua. To the progressive members of the civil society and our human rights lawyers, we say thank you for standing with our freedom fighters. We appreciate you and what you are doing for the good of all the people of Zimbabwe. All we need is a Zimbabwe under a transparent and an accountable leadership. Our future has been tampered with, but I assure you it's coming very soon. And if I don't see to live that day, I wish all the best and hope you will not turn against the wishes of the people and become their oppressors. We are our own liberators. Lastly, I invite my fellow comrades in ZANU-PF to come and join the majority of Zimbabweans in this Save Zimbabwe campaign. Aluta continua. I thank you. So this is my statement. So I give it to you. Unfortunately, I had not photocopied enough of this, but I think we may find a facility here to make copies of the same. Okay, fine. For those who would want it, I will send it on. I'll send it on email, and I'll also post it on my Facebook page. May I ask someone maybe to find the photocopying service down there so that each and everyone will get a copy. This one is a signed statement. It's unlike that in unsigned communique which they are hunting the authors for. Yeah. So any persons before I call up this presser. Okay.
You mentioned about the 2014 dismissal of Manjuru being planted at State House. Would you just perhaps carry us through on how it was planted, what happened, how it was called?
Okay, fine. It went like this. It was after the National Youth Conference where the first ladies candidate in the Youth League elections, Tongai Kasukwere, was defeated by Maim Juru, then candidate, tent trader Chipanga, had won the elections. So Mr. Mugabe, for those of you who were there, you would remember he had spent the whole part of the night at Sheraton, at the HICC, waiting for the results. So he anticipated Tongai Kasukwere to win, but was disappointed when his preferred candidate lost. And by that time, all of us were in support of Tongai, because we had been told all sorts of things that Mam Juru was planning against the president. And as the vanguard of the party, we had to believe in what the president said. So after the youth conference, a meeting was arranged for us with his blessings at State House. And we were taken to State House on the, it was on a Wednesday. We went there to meet Mr. Mugabe. It was myself, Godwin Gome, Ed Mosa Mambra, Washington Komo, Tamuka Nyoni, Vengai Msengi, then we were 7, Ed Kumbulanimpo from Blawai. We were the 7 youth chairpersons. Then Tongai Kasukwere, the former Deputy Secretary for Youth Affairs, Edson Chakanyuka, and the suspended Louis Matutu. So when we went there, we met Mr. Mugabe. It was the 10 of us with him in his office at the State House. And when we got there, he said, "You have come. Can you tell me what transpired at the National Youth Conference? And before you start chronicling what exactly happened, I will tell you what I know about what happened." And he said a lot of things, which he said was what had happened at the conference. And on that Wednesday, he was coming from a cabinet meeting And he told us how he had grilled the former minister Olivier Mchena, how he had grilled Zikama Imavaire over issues at ZESA linking Jamaya Mduri. And he's told us all sorts of things and allowed us to speak out and say to us, fear no one, because I'm the only one who was elected. All these are appointees and I can set them anytime. So feel free. And given that open check, we started saying out all sorts of things against the leadership of Manjuru and her admirers then in the party. And after we had said everything, Mr. Mugabe said, okay guys, are you ready if I am to convene a meeting like tomorrow, Thursday? And he said, as soon as yesterday, Excellency. Because then we were still part of the president worship team in ZANU-PF. And he said, no, as soon as yesterday, just call them and we will tell them everything. And when we stood up to go, he bent his table and said, this party is not for an individual. It's for the people, the people, the people. And I'll deal with them come December Congress. And in the meeting, he explained like he was under siege. And innocently we believed him, thinking he was under siege. And we took it upon ourselves as the vanguard of the party to defend our leader party. And the meeting could not be held on Thursday. It was then held on Friday. I think all of you'd remember there was a headline, I'm not sure in which one of the papers, which said, Minister and someone to State House. And when we went to State House, we were taken to a room, a library there to hide from Manjuru and their team, so that we ambushed them. And the president was right in his office. And when Manjuru and her team had taken seats in the boardroom in State House, we were then called. And while we were moving towards the boardroom, passing in front of his office, going to the boardroom, which is on the extreme right of the state house, where he does his official meetings or whatever duties that he wants to do. It's on the right. So when we went there and he was right at our back, when we just got in and got seated, he came in. All this man during the team were still surprised as to what we were doing at State House. And personally, during that period, I was on suspension. Then those I perceived then as being loyal to Manjuru had suspended me for a good 6 months, if you remember. I was suspended, and the story came out in the Zimbabwe Mail then that I had been suspended. So besides that, I was suspended. He allowed me as the official chairperson of Mashonaland Central Province, ZANU-PF Youth League, to come and represent the province. I want everyone to know how this man can act as long as he's doing it in his favor to safeguard his position. So he disregarded the suspension that had been imposed on me. And when we got in the stage managed meeting, he didn't even greet his comrades. To his right was Manjuru, to his left was the then national chairman Simon Kayamoyo, and Didmas Mtas. And he went straight into the story and said, guys, like we agreed when we met on Wednesday, who will start the ball rolling for us? And Chakajuka came in and said all sorts of things. The other guys came in, Matutu, accused Manjuru, right then said, no, Comrade President, the seat, or the very same seat on which you are seated, and he is being supported by Mr. Kayamoyo on your left and did the massive task. And he pointed out at a number of comrades who were in the meeting. And people there got a surprise as to what was happening. And we all had a party on Manjuru and her supporters, who included Themba Mliskwa and the other guys. And in that meeting, I will pay kudos to the yard leader, Mr. Themba Mliskwa. He stood his ground. He tried his best to defend in front of Mr. Mugabe. But because the president had already decided on the fate of Manjuru and his team and their team, he would not tolerate what these guys were saying. Kayamo stood up and nearly cried and said, Comrade President, what's this? I don't know anything about this. Did Masimtasa stood up and tried to defend himself. And personally, I stood up and said to Manjuru, we come from the same area. I'm from Mount Down, she's from Mount Down. I am of the Makome totem, and traditionally we are regarded husbands to Manjuru. We pay, we give them compensation on a yearly basis of a beast for Teteo Bakafiro Mushamedu. And Manjuru said, sure. Little did she know that I had a bomb to throw at her. And where was all that courage coming from? Our courage was coming from the meeting that we had with the president. Well, these guys would not know how we were all having that courage. We knew we had number one support. So I accused Goche, I accused Minister Sekaramai, I accused Janda, I accused all the guys there. And part of the accusations, besides the ones that were being fed by Mr. Mugabe on that meeting, part of the accusations that we gave to the other comrades, I had been told by Mr. Kasukwere at Travel Plaza, Kona Josiah Chinamanu and Mazoe, at his brother's offices at Henigate, and told me all sorts of things about Mr. Sekeramai, saying Mr. Sekeramai is doing all these things, is the dark horse, is convening meetings at Janda's place. And I said all these accusations confidently in front of all these guys. But now I know Janda is a good friend to Mr. Kasukwere. Little does he know that Kasukwere was the one who had authored his mere fall. So we did that. So that's how it happened. So from that experience, I can safely tell you that Mr. Mugabe is behind what's happening in ZANU-PF now. Mr. Mugabe is the one who incites juniors to threaten or even verbally harass other comrades in the party. And he will pretend unaware, clean and smart. That's his game. If I'll tell you that it's not by coincidence that Mr. Mnangagwa has been accused and insulted twice at the ZANU-PF HQ in front of Mr. Mugabe. And for all the two times, the harassment was meted on him by ladies. And what do you expect him to do to ladies? The same way he sent his wife to harass missing Jew. So that's Mr. Mugabe for you. So that's how the 2014 thing happened. And this is, and from that background, we saw it befitting to partake in those Meet the People rallies where we chanted the Pamberini Mazoe crash. We were allowed officially to chant a factional slogan. But unfortunately for Spina Nari, she got expelled for chanting another slogan. So as long as your slogan is in tandem with what Mr. Mugabe wants, you are comfortable. You have an open chat. But if you do what is against Mr. Mugabe, he will make sure he sees your back. Lastly, on that one, I would like equate to what's happening to ZANU-PF in ZANU-PF to what we have been doing in the rural areas. If you remember, guys, you would have one guy who owns a small plastic ball in the village, and small guys gather at a village pitch. Then you have to arrange a team which plays against each other, and the owner of the ball would be on the other side. And if you happen to score against his team, he would quickly pick the ball and say, I'm going with my ball. So you have to allow him to score more goals than you. And when you get to the goalpost, with no one in the gates, where you can score openly, you have to stop and allow him to come and take the ball and score it score it against you. That's Mr. Mugabe for you. At some point, he plays the leader. At some point, he becomes part of a faction. So that's him.
Considering that you're coming from a ZANU-PF background and all sorts of accusations like corruption, you have been in the system. There are so many issues that have been expressed. Issues like corruption, issues like brutality and other things. How are you going to cleanse yourself to call for a new Zimbabwe when you're still talking about ZANU-PF, when ZANU-PF is still in picture? What is your plan? Do you have another plan? Since it's something, what I'm trying to say is, ZANU-PF, it has been an inflection to you that the system has just been doing so many corrupt things. But now, we are coming to the light. What is it? Are you still going to remain using ZANU-PF's name, or we are going to still come out open, maybe join other forces? What is your plan?
Okay, fine. I think if you have taken note of the developments that are happening in Zimbabwe, people are no longer operating on party lines. Zimbabweans have gathered to say enough is enough as a people, because we are Zimbabweans first before we are politicians or before we belong to a political party. I'll tell you, my brother, if you take the ZANU-PF constitution and read it thoroughly, frankly, you will not go against the ZANU-PF as a party. Because for what it stands for, it's a good institution, it's a good organization. But the problem is the leader, Mr. Mugabe. Is the problem even in ZANU-PF. Everyone knows. To say ZANU-PF is a problem, I'll tell you, Chekere saw it before some of us did. Zimbabwe did the same. All of the guys in ZANU-PF, Margaret Dongo, and everyone, they saw it before us. And we were told that they are traitors, they are rebels. And that was what we believed. You see, but I'll tell you that when you get a personal experience of the happenings in ZANU-PF, then that's when you will realize that all these guys were not wrong. But I don't think it will be fair on the part of Zimbabweans to still continue to say, I'm good of this and that. I'm fine, because I was a ZANU-PF youth leader, and we committed a lot of things in the name of defending the party and defending the nation. We would even regard the independent press as traitors. We were told, no, they are not good, and we believe that. Even we were told the British are this and that, the Americans are this and that. But recently we saw him sending Chinamasa to Britain to beg money. That's how double-headed he is. So you come to a point as an individual where you say, no, enough is enough. And you join the rest of the people. I will tell you, it's not only those in MDC, Malambo, People First, PDP, or other DZ who want Mugabe to go. It's even the people in ZANU-PF. They want him to go. We started speaking against him. We always were inside. That's why we were chucked out. Because we were becoming a thorn in the flesh. So do not even think that all those in ZANU-PF are as guilty as Mr. Mugabe is. So fine, I would want to say on my own behalf, if anyone feels I had offended him or her in what I thought was my line of duty, I'll be very humble to say, can you please have a heart, a place in your heart to forgive me? Even all of the people in the opposition at some point were ZANU-PF. Shangrai was ZANU-PF at some point. Margaret Tongo, Simbamakon, Manjuru, everyone was ZANU-PF. So this is it. So I remain ZANU-PF, but I am against Mr. Mugabe. And I will make sure that I contribute, as long as I'm alive, I'll contribute. Even in death, I'll contribute spiritually to empower the people of Zimbabwe to stand against what Mr. Mugabe is doing.
Yeah, from what the communique from the war veterans were saying, were they right? And why do you think Robert Mugabe still continues to do what he's doing? I understand each time he says something against somebody, like the media, he said something like against the media when he said that go and tell your bosses that my people shall have me for some time to come, and a long time indeed, on the last meeting at the ZANU-PF headquarters. And yesterday we saw a number of journalists being butchered. Do you think Mugabe is instigating this?
Well, I would want to say I believe the man is behind whatever is happening. Remember at the war veterans meeting, the last that he had at the party HQ, he boldly opened that the police force belongs to him, and he will send the police force against those going against him. So for anything that the police is doing, do not blame on those small kids. They are just implementing an order. Remember, in the military or in the security service, people work with orders. I'll tell you, even if there is a CID law and order officer in here, if they are to arrest me, it's not by his liking. They have been instructed by their seniors to say, go and arrest. So whatever that is happening to the war veterans, whatever that is happening to the journalists, whatever is happening to the unemployed graduates, it's being done with Mr. Mugabe knowing, including what happened to the war veterans at that open space where they were hounded by the police. It was Mr. Mugabe. So I don't want the Zimbabweans to think that the police are doing whatever they are doing on their own. No, they will not do that. But they are being sent to defend Mr. Mugabe. And what long time does he refer to? He's 92. He can hardly stand on his own. He can hardly take a 100-meter walk. And what long time is he referring to say you'll be around for a long time? What long time? Obviously, nature has already caught up with him. So for Zimbabwe, this is just a question of time. So we just need to be strong in this short period. Remember when Israelites were coming out of Egypt, in the last days, it was very, very difficult. It became difficult for people in the last days. So, mukaona kunze kunyanya kushiba kwakucheda. Mukaona kangoma kakuririsa sezvakaakita izvi. Kakunobva mukati. Smith akazvita, he boasted and said, there will never be majority in 1,000 years. The same that Mr. Mugabe is doing, and where is Smith today? So Zimbabweans must not bother themselves with Mr. Mugabe's utterances. They are misplaced utterances.
Yeah, my question is, you said that my military was fired or was still the investigation for some members. What are you ready to do if you still regard yourself as a ZANU-PF member? What are you ready to do to ensure that Vice President Nagago, same thing that doesn't happen to Vice President Nagago?
No, I have no task to defend Vice President Mnangagwa because I'm not his employee. I joined the party on my own. He is Emerson Mnangagwa, I've got different. So if Mr. Mugabe, in his wisdom, thinks that he needs to dismiss his vice president, that's up to him. But I think, because like we know, Mumbi Hari, Jami Putsa. zvese zviri kutaurwa zviena vana mandi zvokuti dzingai dzingai, it is not Mandi who is speaking, it's the president who is speaking. And their strategy is, there are two things that may happen. One, they may not necessarily expel Emerson Mnangagwa, but they will make sure that they send everyone who is aligned to him, who admires him, who thinks he is better to succeed Mugabe when Mugabe is no longer there. They will make sure that they send everyone out. Then they will call for an extraordinary Congress and say, if you are comfortable, Mr. Mnangagwa, get into the race. And there will be no one to support him. And they would want to then sustain their claim that he has no support, he has no social base, and by sending his admirers out of the party. That's one thing that they can do. And when you see, it was the second time that these guys went out, all systems out, soliciting for a response from Mr. Mnangagwa. Did you think they wanted him to align himself with the masses of Zimbabwe and those expressing themselves against Mugabe? Do you think they wanted him to do that? No. Fine, they would have wanted him to do that. And if he had done so, he would be in the police cells today. That's why you heard others who were at the war veteran meeting saying, Sungayanu, Vanugasungu. So that's their plan. So if Mr. Mugabe is to decide to dismiss VP Mnangagwa, let him do so. But I'll tell you this. ZANU-PF will break by half. We will share that structure. It has got 14 floors. We will occupy the other 7, and he will occupy with his guys the other 7 floors. Because he's not the founder of ZANU-PF, remember? He's not the founding president of ZANU-PF. He founded the ZANU-PF. He was part of the other guys who founded ZANU-PF. Innocent Kala, what happened to him? The Badini story, what happened to him? And all the other guys. So let them try to do that.
You have said so many things about the president.
Yeah.
And we have these whole succession issues. What do you think about the culture of failing to pass on leadership? If you are saying you are going to be remaining in Zambia.
Okay, fine. You see, succession is not like an event. To me, it's a process. Mr. Mugabe says, if people say they no longer want me, I'll go. But when people speak out and say, can you please go? He arrests them. Like he did, he asked people when he was in Bindura at Sayonjo to say, if you say I must go, then I must go. In my view, I think the president is overstayed. He had done all sorts of things, which some of us think these things are positive. But I think now his legacy is going down, and he should be handed over to someone. But frankly speaking, Mr. Mugabe will not hand over. He is so obsessed with the power that he doesn't want to even stop at the robots. He doesn't want even to see someone portrait being hung in the offices. He would want that to happen when he's gone. And he had already said that. And I would want to urge leaders from other parties to say, please don't be like Mr. Mugabe. Don't personalize your parties. Your parties must continue to belong to the people. Your parties must continue to be people-oriented. And I'll tell you, if Mr. Mugabe fails to address the succession issue, while he is still here, then ZANU-PF will have problems. Even his family will not be secure. So in my view, I think Mr. Mugabe must swallow his pride and preside over the succession matter. He must take people to an extraordinary congress and allow people to choose freely who they want to lead them.
Okay, seeing that you will not do that.
Yeah.
Is so much power handled as you are saying.
Yeah.
What then is the plan?
Remember what happened in 2008. Do you remember what happened in 2008? Yeah? I think I foresee people doing the same in 2018. Because frankly speaking, do you want me for me to invest in a 94-year-old? I can't. So if he is going to stand and say, no, I'm going to stand, fine. We'll see him then. But I'll tell you, you get the embarrassment of his life. Because even people in ZANU-PF no longer want him. Everyone wants change, no matter who comes in. So if he doesn't preside over a succession plan in his part to that day, then in 2018, you will see wonders.
But then who would be your preferred candidate now in the event that Mugabe is not a better candidate?
We'll cross the bridge when we get there. We'll cross the bridge when we get there. Because my response is, the struggle that we have is not for an individual. We are not fighting this for an individual. We are fighting this in our collective cause as Zimbabweans. So I'm joining the rest of Zimbabweans against Mr. Mugabe. So we have People First, we have RDZ, we have PDP, we have MDCT, we have MDC, we have Mabambo, we have Dare, we have all these guys. So we are coming together, not to say we want so to lead us, but all the people are saying, Mr. Mugabe must go. Then as to who will take over, we will deal with that at a later stage, one thing at a time. Okay, my dear.
When you say what happened in 2008, I want to believe you're saying you lost an election, but he's still there. You will still do the same thing come 2018.
No, I think you can see what's happened. There was no point, there was no time in 2008 when people gathered and said, no, we are doing this and that. But this is happening. And I'll tell you, do you think, fine, in 2008, we were told he got 47%, he got 43%, and Shangara got 47%. So it said there was no outright winner. But I'll tell you, it will be difficult for Mr. Mugabe to rig if in 2008 he rigged an election. And it will be difficult to rig. Why? Because part of the people who were with him rigging the election are now in the opposition. So they know everything about the whole process. Didmus Mutasa was Minister of State, Manjuru was Vice President, Kayamwe was National Chairman. Do you think those people do not know how the game is played? They obviously know. You see, so it will be difficult for Mr. Mugabe. So if he fails to step down, then the only way we have to take him out is through an election in 2018. And the environment is conducive for his fall. And the elections he fall.
Don't you think that he knows that come 18 is in trouble and we're likely going to have a violent campaign, and even worse, a violent campaign than that we witnessed in 2008? What's your prediction?
But I'll tell you that the majority of those who participated on his behalf being violent are no longer willing to do so. They are no longer willing.
Why?
Because they have discovered that they've been abused. There is no reason to do that. There is no reason to beat a fellow Zimbabwean. We are all suffering. Even ZANU-PF members, if you go out, you can find them in the queues for 2 or 3 days trying to get them out from the bench. So who would want to help a 94-year-old man to remain in power when there is no solution as to what is supposed to be done? No one will do that, except a few land barons, but they will be outnumbered with the number of Zimbabweans who are at what they'll be doing.
How's a 92-year-old able to instill fear in people? How's he doing that?
Through his system.
As a follow-up question.
Okay, maybe before I'll come to that. Have you seen Mr. Mugabe on the streets beating you journalists? Yes, no. And he can't even raise up his hand to beat someone. He can't. Look at this, he can't. But he's doing it through other people. And if by then we would be having people who would be ready to do it on his behalf, then they must also be ready to face Zimbabweans. Who will be ready not to do any violence, but to defend themselves. Because we will not do this thing and say, beat me on this cheek and I'll give you the other cheek. Why? If they want to know how Zimbabweans will react, let them try it. We are not a violent people. We want to live in peace. You see, two wrongs won't make a right, but they must not push us into a corner. Yeah. My dear?
You said no one is prepared to respond to the case instruction for them to make an election.
Yeah.
Previously, the war vets were being used as foot soldiers for Mugabe in previous elections. And it is on record, war vet bring that ZANU-PF is strong in the role because of their efforts. Now we are seeing a new trend where the youth are now coming up and being given the space that the war vets used to enjoy. So Mugabe is replacing, also replacing those people who have been people on his behalf. Don't you see a situation where you can even come up with other people to work on this behalf?
Obviously, you have a replacement for those who have been doing it on his behalf. Like I told you, look, in 2018, 2013, we had Manju. We had Manju in ZANU-PF. Till 2014. On Manju's side, there are also war veterans. There are also youth. On the MDC side, there are also some war veterans. There are also some youth. In every party, you have youths, you have war veterans. Fine. So, I'll tell you, there was a point when we would accuse those in the police force of being gamatoks. And they're still there. What do you think their allegiance is? When we accuse them of being gamatoks, there are some in the police force and even in the army whom are accused of being MDC, whom are accused of being people first, or of being gamatoks. What do you think their allegiance is? So can Mr. Mugabe afford to recruit new police officers? Can he afford to recruit new soldiers? He can't. So I'll tell you, it will be difficult to do that. That's why you even see some members of the security force not being able to even give him correct advice. Yes, they can't tell him what's really happening. They just tell him what he wants to hear. Exactly. So if it was not for a few in 2008, who then rescued him, personally, he was ready to board a plane out of Zimbabwe. Yeah. So you may think he is this, that, is this, that. He's not that strong that you think.
So, Mr. Terewa, just as a follow-up, you were in ZANU-PF.
Yes.
I'm not so sure for how long. You were in the system, you benefited from the system and so forth.
Yeah.
You were not coming out openly when these atrocities were taking place, like in 2008 and so forth. Now you are saying these things against Robert Mugabe. How sincere are you?
I'm sincere to the point like Changirai, because Changirai point was ZANU-PF. I'm sincere in the same way as Manjuru, because Manjuru was ZANU-PF. I'm sincere to the same point as Simba Makon, because he was also ZANU-PF. I'm also sincere, like any one of you who has been ZANU-PF, but no longer believe, who has been Mugabe's foot soldier, but no longer believe in the man. So everyone, the majority of the people, except those who will be voting for the first time or who started to vote maybe 2008 or so, the majority of the people have been at some point ZANU-PF. So my sincerity is to the same levels as those who were also ZANU-PF before. Everyone benefited from, the majority of those in the opposition benefited from Mugabe, benefited from ZANU-PF. But there was a point when they said, no, enough is enough. And I've joined the fray.
Because obviously, some people on the ground are going to say, Mr. Terewa did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And who did it?
Like
I'll challenge all those guys in the opposition to say, come out in the open. Who didn't benefit from Mr. Mugabe? Who was not ZANU-PF? Everyone was ZANU-PF. Unless someone can tell me that he or she was a member of the Rhodesian Front and in all this time belonged to another party, not ZANU-PF. But as long as at some point you voted for Mugabe, you voted for ZANU-PF, you are like me. So no one must have that holier than thou attitude. And should that be a crime? Even biblically, Saul tend to be poor. Who has not been ZANU-PF?
Now your eyes are open. Are you not fearing for your life?
Which life? Who is not going to die? Who is not? Who is not going to die? Are you sure you live on this earth forever? You will not. It's better to die for a good cause. It's for me. I'm ready. That's why I have my personal pledge here, which goes like, bear in mind that my existence, as I stand here today, is because somebody made a choice somewhere to stand up for me when it was the risky and prisoners, standing up when it was hard and unpopular. And because that somebody defied the odds and stood up, and it inspired a few more who also stood up, causing a few hundred to stand up, and eventually encouraging a few thousand to stand up against a murderous secular regime, which standing was with courage, clear purpose, and motivated by principle and love for freedom, peace, and equality. I hereby also make a choice to stand up for my generation, and because of our time, not for applause and reward. In doing this, I choose to conduct myself with morality, integrity, and consistency. Thus, I need not fear the forces of inhumanity and cruelty. I choose to stand for something, for if I'm to stand for nothing, then I'll fall for anything. I choose to plant a tree under whose shade I may not sit. I will not be afraid to stand for peace, principle, freedom, truth, equality, and justice. From this moment, I choose to gather with others who have been in this struggle before me to confront unequivocally the anxiety of my generation. For the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in terms of comfort, but where he stands in terms of challenge and controversy. And from being a member of the Save ZANU-PF campaign, I commit myself to join and contribute to the Save Zimbabwe campaign. So help me God. So even those who kill me, one of the days they'll join me and we will discuss it in the cemetery and say, how did you do this? So who would die? No one, everyone will die. Thank you so much. Oh, fine, thank you. 774.